Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. It's Anthony Fantano, you know who it is, and you're about to listen to this new episode of the Needle Drop Podcast. And on the show, we have nutritionist, doctor, mastermind of nutritionfacts.org, Mr. Dr. Greger. Now, before you listen, there are a few ways you can support this podcast. You can use our Amazon Associates link if you live in the U.S., buying anything on Amazon. We get kickback from that. Link is down there in the description. You can also, via our support page, linked also in the description, and you see it in the video screen right now. You can subscribe to this podcast, get it sent to your email inbox for a small monthly fee. You can also just stream it on this YouTube channel, share it with a friend, hit that like, leave a comment. You can also subscribe to our podcast. We have older episodes backlogged there on iTunes. The link is also down there in the description, and also on our support page. There's probably a little merch there. You can pick up a classic review, which can be sent to your email inbox. And that's about it. Cool? Cool. You the best. Enjoy the show. Bye. Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for another episode of the Needle Drop Podcast, where we interview content creators from across the internet. In this episode, my guest is a doctor, author, public speaker, a content creator. As I said, he runs the nonprofit nutritionfacts.org, where you can find daily videos on food, health, and nutrition. Some of my favorite videos of his are his annual video series, his seminars, where he talks about things like uprooting the leading causes of death and preventing disease. He also has a new book out called How Not to Die, which I just ordered maybe an hour before this interview, now that I see that it's recently been released, because I saw that there was like a little funding campaign to sort of get revenue for the book together. My guest is Dr. Michael Greger. Hey, thanks for coming on, man.
Happy to be here.
You're just so amped.
Cool. What in the world is there not to be amped about?
That's well, nothing really. Let's just go. Let's do it. This is going to be a pretty short interview in comparison with my other interviews, because I know you have others to get to later today. And I know that you've probably said this to many people before, but just for the sake of my audience who are unfamiliar with what you do, give us a little bit of an elevator pitch as to what people can find when they go on to nutritionfacts.org.
Nutritionfacts.org is a free nonprofit science-based public service providing daily updates on the latest in nutrition research via bite-sized videos, more than 1,000 videos, nearly every aspect of healthy eating, with new videos and articles uploaded every day. Nutritionfacts.org.
Dude, you got it memorized.
I go on a lot of elevators, so
yes.
You got to have that handy.
Oh, man. Okay. So on your website, it's very obvious that evidence-based nutrition studies, food studies are very important to you. Generally, where do you find a lot of these studies? How do you vet them? I mean, as you already know, and as you'll probably explain to my audience here, there are quite a few studies out there where maybe a lobby or a company that sells X might put money into a study, and lo and behold, they find that X is amazing for you, and eat tons of it because there are all sorts of health benefits. When going through these studies, how exactly are you making sure that these conflicts of interest aren't coming up?
Yeah, science today is fraught with fraud, bias, sloppiness, conflicts of interest, quietly shelving and burying unfavorable outcomes, inappropriate interpretations. But, I figure it's like that Winston Churchill quote, democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others. Right, so one could say that the peer-reviewed scientific literature these days is the worst form of evidence except all the others. Right? How else can we make life or death decisions for ourselves, our families, our patients, but by the best available balance of evidence? And so to do that, you just need to, to look at it all. So, I don't know, 14,000 or so articles published every year in nutrition. 70 or so a day. So you just got to go through them all, make sure you don't miss any. And you always want to look to what the funding source is, as you mentioned. Doesn't automatically mean that it's the study is distorting the science, but you just, it helps to know, so you can keep that in the back of your head when you're reading it to make sure that the study design wasn't done in a way to get a favorable result.
How long have you sort of been on this journey where you've been searching through these thousands and thousands of studies, and before you came to this point where you're at now with this book being just released, where were you at, like ideologically, when it came to diet and health? I mean, is there anything that you didn't know before that you learned as you were going on this journey that sort of caused you to do a 180 on anything that was sort of just accepted as a general truth to you?
Well, this is the big 5-year anniversary to Nutrition Facts. Started in 2011, so excited to be here in 2016. I learn new stuff all the time. I mean, when I do videos, you think I knew any of that stuff? This is all based on new research. Every time a new article gets published, I learn something new, and I just pass that something new on to other people. But before I pulled up the study, I had no idea, and so my diet changes all the time.
Yeah.
In fact, that's, one of the reasons I have, my book. I go through this kind of daily dozen checklist of all the things I want to include in my daily routine, because, I'll go along and find some absolutely amazing evidence to support, adding a tablespoon of flax seeds to one's daily diet, or a quarter teaspoon of turmeric to one's daily diet. I'm just like so pumped. I get into the habit, and then I just I forget or something. And then all of a sudden, a month or two later, another amazing article. I'll be like, oh, damn, forgot about the flax seeds. Oh, I got to do that again. So I was like, darn it. All right, I'm going to start. I got a little whiteboard and just made a list. It's like, all right, oh, yeah, I got that today. I got that. Oh, I forgot to eat berries today. All right, check that off. And so that's what evolved into this kind of daily dozen things. Because I wanted the book not to just really kind of to extend beyond the website. See, the website looks got 1,000 videos. That's great, but it can be a little overwhelming. I do have those year in review videos that goes through the science in 12 months chunks. I'm glad you appreciate those. But I wanted to do more than just compile all the most compelling evidence in one place. I wanted it to be more kind of a reference book, but practical guide on translating this mountain of data into day-to-day kind of decisions.
Yeah, we'll link to those videos as well as the book down there in the description box. Even though it seems that a lot of people generally are not sort of taking to heart a lot of the recommendation, the dietary recommendations, sort of that the plant-based community is putting out there, it's not for lack of interest in health. I just think there's kind of a bit of a certain level of confusion that people have in terms of what's healthy eating. And I noticed that a lot of the studies that you reference, it seems that you favor them in terms of they have a certain outcome. They help this, they alleviate that, they cure this, they sort of prevent this. What exactly to you sort of qualifies as a telltale sign of health or healthfulness or healthy eating? Because I think for a lot of people, health is kind of this nebulous term. Health is kind of whatever people define it to be. If someone just generally feels good, feels healthy, then they sort of define themselves as such. Should we be looking at things like disease? Should we be looking at things like weight gain and BMI to sort of tell us, oh, wow, that's really a red flag?
The most important thing for me is hard endpoints, which is just fancy doctor speak for, death, the surgery diagnoses, instead of risk factors. Yes, it's interesting to know what one's cholesterol is, but the only reason you care about cholesterol is because you care about the number one cause of death in men and women, heart disease. The only reason you care about, your blood sugars, you want to make sure that, you're not doing damage to your body and pre-diabetic, etc. And so, risk factors are helpful because, you can find those out very short term. So, you eat healthy enough, you go on a plant-based diet, in 1 or 2 weeks, you can drop your cholesterol a significant amount. And that just gives you a sense of kind of the direction your body's going in. But it's the studies that, do an intervention, follow people out for a couple of years and actually see differences in Cancer progression, differences in the openness of the arteries, and healthy enough diet, you can reverse heart disease, opening up arteries without drugs, without surgery. That's the really exciting stuff. But you can get some kind of indicators. If your blood pressure is getting better, your cholesterol is getting better, your blood sugars are down, your triglycerides are down. These are all good indicators that you're moving in the right direction. But you want to make sure that ideally, whatever diet you're eating has been put to the test in an interventional trial that's randomized people into two groups, and the diet that you're eating, people did better than any other diet. And that's why I eat a plant-based diet, because there's only one diet ever been proven to reverse heart disease in the majority of patients, this plant-based diet. And if that's all it could do, reverse our number one killer, then shouldn't that be the default diet until proven otherwise? And in fact, it's also effective in treating, reversing, arresting other leading killers. High blood pressure, type 2 diabetes just seems to make the case overwhelming. And so anytime anyone approaches you and says, hey, did you hear about this other cool diet? Do me a favor, ask them, wait a second, has this new diet been proven to reverse heart disease? The number one reason me and all my loved ones will die? If the answer is no, why would you even consider it? Just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it seems like in that regard that there's quite a few different diets to sort of try out. People throw out paleo diet, gluten-free, low carb, and some people advocate the idea that you could be healthy at any size. Some people advocate the idea that or sort of will bring up an anecdote of maybe their grandfather ate eggs and bacon and drank whiskey every day and he lived until 101 or something.
Well, look, you can say, well, my dad never wore a seatbelt and didn't die in a car crash, so I'm not going to wear a seatbelt. Well, what? That's what reducing risk is all about. Does a seatbelt guarantee you're not going to die in a car crash? No, but it reduces your risk. That's why we do it. That's why anyone with a brain takes simple, side effect free solutions to reduce their risk and to reduce the risk of their families. And it just makes no sense to me that people are gambling with their lives like that. People advocate a lot of stuff, but it's the science. That's why we have science now. We don't have to just dream, come up with funky little theories. We can put them to the test, and some diets, pass with flying colors, and other diets kill people.
I think this is part of the reason why there's a lot of confusion over these issues. To go back to your sort of your seatbelt anecdote, for a lot of people, not wearing a seatbelt seems to have a very violent and obvious outcome, which causes people who see that outcome not using the seatbelt to use them. Whereas earlier, when you were talking about the things that a plant-based diet prevents, and sort of the things that you could see sort of through a blood test that it lowers, people aren't exactly internally feeling the nuances of these differences between a plant-based or sort of an animal product, an American sort of standard diet, as they're eating it necessarily, especially if they're switching from one to the other immediately. You're not necessarily going to see everything, all the issues that you're dealing with, if you are dealing with any, sort of alleviated within a day. So if you can sort of advocate for a plant-based diet based more on sort of maybe the physical or maybe any visual differences or improvements that people might be seeing as they continue down that road, as they continue down that lifestyle. Because again, I think for a lot of people, the science doesn't necessarily translate into real life differences unless we're talking about long term, because for a lot of people, the issues with sort of leading a life with a standard American diet, those issues don't arise up until sort of it's too late, or until they're at a point where they're beyond wanting to change their diet, or they're at a point where they're actually, face to face with heart disease. And we're talking about, sort of 30, 40 years down the road, if they're lucky, because it seems like these issues are coming on earlier and earlier.
Well, that's the problem. The problem is people aren't, people are eating as if there's no tomorrow. In fact, I did a video. There was a study of analysis of last meals requested by death row inmates. They're just like, well, what are people actually requesting, right? And it turns out what people are requesting, and they know, look, you could eat anything. You're going to die the next day, right? So it's like guaranteed whatever you could eat, whatever you want. It's not going to, who cares what happens, right? And it turns out that what people order for their last meals before getting executed is pretty much the standard American diet. So people are eating day to day as if, they're going to just like drop dead. And they're just not putting any thought into the long-term health and well-being. Now, thankfully, there are, it's like people who smoke. It's like you smoke cigarettes, people feel good. The nicotine gives you a rush, right? And so you just don't worry about, what's going to happen years down the road. All you get is kind of positive feedback. Your nails turn yellow and you can, get some more colds and get coughing or something. But in general, it's it's a positive sensation, just like Krispy Kremes are a positive sensation, but are not a good idea for one's long-term health. No, but thankfully, plant-based diet, you go on a healthy diet, and you do see immediate benefits. So all of a sudden, your constipation clears up, you sleep better. You more energy. So these are some of the typical things one sees, reported in these kind of studies. And for people, with chronic pain conditions like arthritis, you can get these dramatic improvements. People with angina, crushing chest pain, within weeks that can clear up. And that'll give people the kind of added incentive to keep it up. But you'll never know how you feel eating healthy unless you give it a try. So I encourage people, try eating healthy for a couple of weeks and let your body tell you what it thinks of it.
The standard American diet that you're talking about, have those standards today changed drastically from what the standard American diet might have been 50 years ago, from your experience and from what you've seen?
It's actually as horrible as it is. So our diet is the number one cause of death and disability in the country, bumping tobacco smoke to killer number 2. Smoking only kills 500,000 Americans a year, where our diet kills hundreds of thousands more, but it's actually improved, surprisingly. So we're actually eating less cholesterol, we're eating a little less saturated fat. But we're continuing to eat the same amount of horrible processed foods. We're continuing to eat not enough fruits and vegetables. But it was pretty miserable, for the last half century period. But now we have. That was before 1990 when Dr. Dean Ornish proved in his lifestyle heart trial that you could reverse heart disease. Something that we didn't even really know was possible. And so, since that day, since July 1990, not a single person should have died. Since then, of course, hundreds of thousands of people continue to die because they just don't know. They were never given that option. Doctors don't know it, so patients don't know it. And people are dying unnecessarily. Families are being devastated unnecessarily. That's why I wrote the book, How Not to Die.
You're talking about these sort of slight improvements on the American diet over the past 50 years, but still today we're dealing with things like the obesity epidemic. What exactly do you sort of attribute to, what factors do you see kind of playing out into that outcome exactly, and in the way that people eat today, if it's sort of improved by any stretch of the imagination?
Well, the key to healthy, sustainable weight control is to adopt a diet that emphasizes nutrient-dense but calorically dilute foods, such that one never has to worry about calorie counting or portion control. We evolved over millions of years eating exceedingly fiber-rich diets, probably exceeding like 100 grams a day, based on studies of fossilized human feces. And so And what happens is with that fiber is the good bacteria in our gut convert the fiber into these short-chain fatty acids, which are absorbed into our bloodstream, affect our metabolic hormones, reduce our appetite. But if we don't eat enough fiber-containing plant foods, we rob our body of the natural satiety signals. So when people are eating processed foods, people eating animal foods, they're eating all these calories, but their body just never seems satisfied. And they overeat, and then they get fat and sick.
And a lot of the evidence that you sort of point towards, picks out animal products, meat specifically, is having some dangers to consuming it on a regular basis. Are these issues exacerbated today by consuming more of it, or how we sort of process it? It seems like there's a big difference in animal agriculture today versus 100 years ago.
The biggest difference is that it's cheaper, so people eat more of it. So it's really a quantity issue. Though certainly, we've kind of engineered these animals through selective breeding to fit whatever qualities people want. And so, chickens 100 years ago had 16 fat calories. Now they have over 200. So it went from about 2 grams of fat to over 20 grams of fat. So 10 times more calories from fat, 10 times more fat. And that's because, we want chickens to be juicy and dripping with, fat. McDonald's wants their McNuggets to be greasy. And so, so chicken used to be healthier. No chicken in the universe has any fiber. Animals have bones to hold them up, plants have fiber to hold them up. So you're not going to get your phytonutrients, you're not going to get your antioxidants, you're not going to, so it's like, everything we put in our mouth has an opportunity cost. It's a lost opportunity to put something healthier in our mouth, and there's nothing healthier on the planet than these whole plant foods. So it's like, every time you're, taking up, some calories in your 2,000 a day calorie bank or whatever with foods that are less than optimally healthy, it's, a lost opportunity to do your body right.
Yeah, because it's interesting that you sort of bring up that factoid about finding evidence of fibrous foods in fossils of human feces. It seems to go against the general argument that humans evolved eating meat and so on and so forth.
Well, it's just not. They're talking about the Paleolithic period, right? Which is the last 2 million years, as if human beings just popped out of existence. Adam and Eve came around and rode some dinosaurs over, and poof. We broke off from our great ape ancestors about 20 million years ago. So you say, wait a second, what happened during the first 90% of our evolution? Well, we were plant-based like our fellow great apes. And so our biochemistry, our bodies, our organ systems, everything evolved in this context of plant foods. So only, in the last kind of 10% did we start seeing evidence of, scarring on bones that suggests we started using tools to start butchering, etc. And of course, it was a boon to human civilization because we evolved in a context of famine, essentially. So anytime you can get calorie-dense foods like brains and bone marrow stuff gives you a better chance to live until reproductive age, to pass along your genes. But, that's not the problem we have right now, getting enough calories to survive till puberty. The problem we have now is these chronic diseases of older age, and we have a wonderful body of science that can tell us what to do to avoid those chronic diseases. The good news is we have tremendous power over our health, destiny, and longevity. The vast majority of premature death and disability is preventable with a plant-based diet and other healthy lifestyle behaviors. So let's do it!
But a lot of these preventable diseases, it seems like to the medical community as well as the people who are suffering from them, there's still so many mysteries around the way these diseases work. And almost a mystery as to why this person came to get the disease, sort of like a why me sort of thing. Almost to the point where when they see someone like you sort of saying what they're saying, almost as if these dietary choices are a silver bullet, it's kind of hard to believe. In your opinion, how much of a silver bullet are we talking about, in terms of some of these diseases?
We're talking about a diet that can reverse the disease, not slow it down, not just stop it, but actually cure the disease. You can have type 2 diabetes, go on a plant-based diet, and then not have type 2 diabetes. You can have hypertension, the number one risk factor for death in the world, and then not have high blood pressure off all drugs thanks to a healthy diet. When you treat the cause of disease, about 80% of our death and disabilities, these chronic lifestyle diseases. So if you treat the cause of the disease, then the disease gets better. It's common sense, and it works, and it's been put to the test. It's not theory. It's not just someone's opinion. We randomize people to 2 different diets. One half gets better, the other half continues to get worse. Which half do you want to be in?
All right. Moving on from here, what can you tell us a little bit, just a tease toward this book that you've recently released? What can people look forward to in this book that they haven't necessarily seen in your videos? I understand that that you do some specific dietary recommendations in this book and sort of go into sort of what you're eating on a daily basis.
Yeah, so I have chapters on the role diet may play in preventing, arresting, reversing each of our 15 leading causes of death. So I just go, 15 chapters with each of our 15 leading causes of death, chapter on each, 3,000 citations, just go through. And so there's all the compelling signs. And then, okay, well, how do you actually make it work in your life, in your family's life? Well, that's the second half of the book, where I go through this kind of traffic light system, say what are the healthiest foods, what are the least healthy foods, what do I mean by processed foods, what do I mean by plant-based, and then these are the foods we really got to try to get into our daily diets. Here's the daily dozen, how much exercise, how much beverages, what's the healthy sweeteners, just go on and on, all the real practical stuff that people ask me questions all the time. Yes, there's the science that like there is on the website, but then I just kind of get a little more personal. The book allowed me the flexibility to go beyond just sticking to the science and be like, all right, well, in my professional opinion, this is what I'm eating for breakfast. Now, is there a study saying that if I eat this for breakfast, something's going to happen? No, but that's why there's never been a video about it, but because, it's just like, all right, I've read all these studies, how do I make it work in my life? And so I just want to share that. And if it works for people, great. If it doesn't, that's fine too. You should take the same body of evidence and find a way to use that same body of evidence to eat in a different way, as long as you're, following these general principles.
Personally, it's been interesting to sort of see a channel talking about the types of dietary guidelines that you talk about, and it not be a vlog channel, how it not be sort of a personal exploration into these foods. It's very science-based, it's very fact-oriented, it's referenceable, and it sort of stands up to the criticism that a lot of people throw at these types of recommendations that, it's sort of just made up, it's just, feel-good science. It's just kind of vegan propaganda or something.
I have no patience for that. Anytime anyone says anything about an important topic. Now, look, you're doing a music review, say whatever the hell you want, right? Say whatever the hell you feel. But when you're talking about something that's life or death, talking about something that could hurt people or that could help people, then you got to have your stuff together. You've really got to, you weren't born with this knowledge. So how did you come about it? Did you just hear about it? Did you read about it somewhere? Where did you read about it? Let's track this back to the primary source to see if there's any credibility to it. But instead, people just make pronouncements, like a guru just says, well, do this. Don't question. That annoys me. Again, if you're talking about something trivial, then fine. Tell people to do whatever you want. But, when it's something, when someone says, put butter in your coffee or something, it's like, you realize you're going to hurt people, right? Literally hurt people. And unfortunately, I don't think people take that responsibility serious enough. And so that's why there's nothing on my site almost nothing. I mean, sometimes I can't help but have a little of my opinion sneak in there, but I really work hard to be like, look, everything I cite, in fact, you look at my videos, there's the paper right there. I don't have to reference it. I show it to you right there. There's the graphs, there's the illustrations, there's the quotes right in front of you. Did I interpret it wrong? Well, look, here's the links. Click on sources cited. Here's the links to, pull down the PDF, read it yourself. Maybe I made a mistake, jump right in here. Let's do this together because it's a matter of life and death. We're talking about your family's health. So you got to take this serious. You can't just believe somebody because they said it. You have to get at the best approximation of the truth.
All right, I want to thank Dr. Michael Greger for coming on the show and talking about his new book and sort of the dietary guidelines that have come out of his fantastic website, nutritionfacts.org. Mike, thanks for coming on the show.
So glad to be here.